The call came on a Sunday evening, which was the only day Riley allowed herself to do nothing in particular. She was on her couch with a book she'd been meaning to finish for 3 weeks and a cup of tea that had gone slightly cold. And when her phone lit up with her mother's name, she felt the small, familiar adjustment in her chest. Not dread, not quite, but the bracing of a person who has learned, over many years, to check the weather before stepping outside. Riley. Her mother's voice had a particular quality when she had prepared what she wanted to say in advance, a slight oversmoothness, the verbal equivalent of ironed sheets. "I need to talk to you about Thanksgiving." "Okay," Riley said. "Connor is bringing Vivienne this year, to the house, for the whole day." Riley waited. "Vivienne comes from a very specific world," her mother continued. "Her family is their prominent people, Riley. Old money and new connections and all of that. Connor is serious about her, and we want the day to go well. We want her to see the family in the best possible light." There was a pause in which Riley understood that she was being positioned as a variable in this equation, rather than a member of it. "We think it might be better," her mother said, landing softly on every word, "if you sat this one out. Just this year. You know you always come straight from a job. The boots, the clothes, and we just can't have her seeing that. Not the first time. It wouldn't present well." Riley looked at her boots by the front door. Steel-toed, dark brown, well-made. She had bought them 3 years ago from a supply company that made boots for people who stood on concrete for 10 hours and needed them to last. They were the best boots she had ever owned. She resoled them rather than replacing them because the upper leather had broken in exactly right, and she saw no reason to start over. "I understand," she said. Her mother exhaled relief, or the beginning of relief. "We'll make it up to you at Christmas. It's just 1 year, once Vivienne is more comfortable with the family." "Mom," Riley said, "it's okay, I understand." She kept her voice even because she did understand, and because the understanding was not the warm kind. "Have a good Thanksgiving." She ended the call. She picked up her book. She read 4 more pages before she accepted that she had not retained any of them, and she set it down and drank her cold tea and looked at the middle distance for a while. Then she went to bed. Riley McAllister had been running her own general contracting company since she was 28. She had started in the trades at 22. Her uncle had owned a small outfit, and she had spent summers there through college, initially for the money, and then because she discovered she was genuinely good at it, which is a different motivation and a more sustaining one. She had her contractor's license at 26, her own LLC at 28, and by the time she was 33, she had a company with 14 employees, a reputation in the city's design and construction community that had been built entirely on the quality of her work, and a portfolio that ranged from high-end residential renovations to 2 commercial builds that had been featured in regional architecture publications. McAllister Contracting. The logo was simple, her own design, black on cream, the kind of mark that reads as established without trying to announce it. Her parents knew she was a contractor. They had known since she'd entered the trades, a choice her mother had received with the particular silence of a person who has strong feelings and has decided, for reasons of social maintenance, not to express them fully. Her brother Connor had taken a different path, finance degree, wealth management firm, a social world their parents navigated with the careful attention of people who understood that proximity to success was its own form of currency. Riley had never begrudged Connor any of it. He was good at what he did, and he had always been decent to her, which she valued more than the career comparison. What her parents had never asked about, never once, in 5 years of running the company, was the actual scope of what she had built. The residential jobs were visible to them in a general way. Their daughter did construction, she drove a truck, she wore boots. This was the totality of their picture. They had never asked about the commercial work, never asked about her crew, never asked to see the portfolio she kept on her company website, updated quarterly, full of before and after documentation of spaces she had transformed for clients who paid her well and referred her widely. They had never asked because they had filed her under a category, and the category did not require further inquiry. This was, Riley had come to understand, their limitation rather than hers. She carried it the way you carry a stone in your pocket, aware of it, adjusted to the weight, not defined by it. She spent Thanksgiving at her friend Paula's house, which was its own particular kind of warmth. Paula's family was large and opinionated, and cooked too much and argued gently about football and pulled Riley into all of it without ceremony. The way good people absorb strays into celebrations without making the stray feel like a charity case. Riley brought a pie she had made from scratch, ate more than she intended, and drove home in the dark feeling something she would not have called fine, exactly, but functional. Intact. There were 2 messages on her phone when she got home. One from her mother, "Hope you had a nice day, honey. We missed you." One from Connor, sent at 4:17 p.m., which was the approximate middle of the family dinner. "I just found out. I'm sorry. Call me when you can." She stared at Connor's message for a long time. Then she typed back, "I'm okay. Talk soon." She did not reply to her mother. The following Tuesday, she was on a job site in the north part of the city. A whole house renovation for a couple who had bought a 1940s Craftsman and wanted to restore it without erasing what made it worth restoring, which was the kind of project Riley took particular satisfaction in. When her phone rang with a number she didn't immediately recognize, she almost let it go to voicemail. She answered on the 4th ring mostly because something in the prefix nagged at her as familiar. "Is this Riley McAllister?" The voice was a woman's. Composed, precise, a slight formal quality that came not from coldness but from habit. "It is," Riley said. "My name is Vivienne Alcott." A pause that felt deliberate. "I believe we have a mutual connection, though apparently it took Thanksgiving dinner for either of us to realize it." Riley went still. "I was at your family's home last Thursday," Vivienne continued, "with Connor, and during the course of the evening, your mother mentioned in passing that you'd been asked not to come." She framed it as a practical decision, something about your work clothes. Another pause. "She also mentioned your last name and your company name, and I realized I was sitting in a room with people who had uninvited their daughter to protect her from me, and I happened to know exactly who that daughter was." Riley stepped away from the noise of the job site, around the corner of the building, to where it was quiet. "I know your work," Vivienne said. "I know it because you renovated the Alcott building on Meridian Street 4 years ago, my grandfather's building, the one my family has owned since 1978, and that needed a full structural and interior restoration that 3 other contractors told us wasn't feasible within the budget. You told us it was feasible, and you were right, and you delivered it on time, and my father has mentioned your company name in my presence more than once since then as the standard against which he measures other contractors." Riley looked at the ground. The concrete was good, her crew had poured it last week, and it had set cleanly. "I didn't know Connor's last name was McAllister," she said. "It was the honest reason. He goes by his middle name professionally. I never connected it." "He didn't know I knew your work," Vivienne said. "I didn't know you were his sister. We put it together at dinner when your mother was explaining why you weren't there." A brief pause. She was very forthcoming with the details. There was something in Vivienne's voice that was carefully neutral in the way that careful neutrality covers something else entirely. "How did my family take it?" Riley asked. "Your mother stopped speaking mid-sentence," Vivienne said. "Your father asked me to repeat myself. Connor left the table for approximately 10 minutes and came back looking like he'd had a conversation with himself that hadn't gone well." A pause. "Your mother cried. Eventually, after your father confirmed on his phone that the Meridian Street building was indeed the Alcott property and that McAllister Contracting was indeed the firm credited on the restoration." Riley was quiet for a moment. "I want to be direct with you," Vivienne said. "I'm not calling to deliver gossip or to perform an apology on your family's behalf. I'm calling because what was done to you was wrong, and because I think you should know the full picture, and because I'd like to meet you properly, not as Connor's sister, but as someone whose professional reputation precedes her considerably." "I appreciate that," Riley said. "I also have a project," Vivienne said, and there was the very slight shift in register of a person moving from personal to professional, which Riley recognized and appreciated. A full renovation. A property I've just acquired. I was going to put it out for bids, but I'd rather not go through that process if I don't have to. My father's opinion counts for a great deal in how I approach these decisions, and his opinion of your work is unambiguous. I can come in this week, Riley said. Thursday, Vivienne said. Thursday works. Her mother called that evening. Riley was at her kitchen table with her laptop open, pulling up the Meridian Street file, her own documentation, the photographs she kept of every completed job, and she let the call ring twice before she answered, not from avoidance, but from wanting to be settled before she picked up. Her mother's voice had lost the prepared quality entirely. What was left was smaller and less managed. A woman who had spent 5 days with a version of reality she had constructed and had watched it dismantle itself at her own dinner table. I didn't know, her mother said. About the building, about the Alcott family knowing you, knowing your work. I didn't know any of it. I know you didn't, Riley said. I've been trying to think about why I didn't know. A pause. And I keep coming back to the fact that I never asked. You would have told me if I had asked. You would have shown me. Riley looked at her laptop screen. The Meridian Street building before, peeling facade, compromised load-bearing wall on the east side, windows that had been poorly replaced in the 80s and needed to come out entirely. After, the same building but legible again, its original bones visible and respected, the kind of restoration that adds decades rather than just years. I have a company website, Riley said. It was not an accusation. It was a fact offered plainly. I looked at it tonight, her mother said. For the first time. A long pause. Riley, she stopped, started again. I'm ashamed of what I asked you. I'm ashamed that I thought that I was more worried about what Vivienne Alcott would think of your boots than about what it would mean to ask you to stay home. Riley let the silence sit. I'd like to come and see one of your jobs, her mother said carefully. If you'd ever let me, I'd like to understand what you do. It was the most honest sentence her mother had said to her in years. Riley recognized it as such. After the holidays, Riley said, I have a craftsman restoration running through December. Come in January when we're deeper into it. You can walk the site. Her mother said, I'd like that. They talked for a few minutes more, nothing of great weight, just the re-establishment of ordinary frequency after a disruption, the conversational equivalent of checking that the structure was still sound. Riley ended the call and sat for a moment in her kitchen. Her boots were by the front door, where she always left them. She looked at them the way she sometimes looked at things she had built, with the particular satisfaction of work that had been done correctly and would outlast the opinions of people who hadn't understood its value until they were standing inside it. The Thursday meeting with Vivienne was at the property, a 4-story building in a neighborhood that had been shifting upward for a decade and had now fully arrived, the kind of location where the real estate itself was an argument. Vivienne met her at the front door and they walked the space together for 90 minutes, Riley taking notes, asking the questions she always asked, reading the building the way she had learned to read buildings. Not just what was visible, but what the visible things indicated about what wasn't. The project was substantial. Exactly the kind of work she built her schedule around, complex, long timeline, high craft, the kind that would be documented and referenced and would send 3 more clients her way before it was finished. At the end of the walkthrough, standing in the top floor space where the original plaster ceiling had been preserved under 2 layers of dropped tile and was waiting to be uncovered, Vivienne looked at Riley directly. My father asked me to tell you that the east staircase at Meridian Street is still the finest restoration work he's seen, she said. He wanted it on record. Riley looked at the ceiling. She had an instinct already about what was under the tile, the depth of the space, the proportions of the room, the way the light moved. She knew before she opened it what she was going to find, because she had learned to read these things, and the reading had taken years and the years had taken everything she had, and nobody had given any of it to her. Tell him I'll do my best to give him a new favorite, she said. Vivienne smiled. It was a real one, not the social instrument Riley had half expected from a woman of her world, but the genuine expression of someone who has found, in an unexpected place, exactly what they were looking for. They walked back down the stairs, past the original banister that needed refinishing but was structurally perfect, and out into the November afternoon where the light was thin and gold, and the street was going about its ordinary business. And Riley stood on the sidewalk and looked up at the building's facade with the focused, quiet attention of someone who has already begun. The boots were on her feet. They were exactly where they belonged,